Pilgrims, a group of English settlers who set out on an extraordinary journey across the Atlantic, braving the unknown to create a new life in the Americas. You've probably heard about the Mayflower, right? That's the ship they sailed on in 1620, eventually founding Plymouth Colony in Massachusetts. But there's so much more to their story than just a voyage. These pilgrims weren't just adventurers. They were driven by their beliefs. They were part of a religious group called the Separatists, or Brownists, who wanted to break away entirely from the Church of England. Unlike the Puritans, who hoped to reform the church from within, the Pilgrims believed that true worship meant separating completely. And, let me tell you, that wasn't a popular opinion in England at the time. In fact, their beliefs made them outlaws. Back then, skipping a Church of England service could get you fined or even thrown in jail. Some separatists, like leaders Robert Brown and John Greenwood, paid the ultimate price, executed for their defiance. Others, like our Pilgrims, decided that exile was their only option. In the early 1600s, a group of them from Nottinghamshire, led by people like John Robinson and William Brewster, started holding secret gatherings, avoiding the authorities at every turn. Brewster even opened his manor in Scrooby for meetings. But the risk was enormous. The government was always watching, ready to impose harsh punishments. Eventually, the pressure became too much. By 1607, the Pilgrims had made the tough decision to leave England and head to the Netherlands. They settled in the city of Leiden, which was a hub of industry and religious tolerance. Sounds like the perfect solution, right? Not quite. While Leiden gave them the freedom to worship as they wished, life there was tough. Many of the Pilgrims came from rural backgrounds and struggled to adapt to city life. Plus, the Dutch language and culture were alien to them. For some, finding work was nearly impossible. Even so, they made the best of it. William Brewster taught English, and John Robinson enrolled at Leiden University to pursue his doctorate. Others took on whatever jobs they could find: printing, textile work, or brewing. But it wasn't easy, and the cultural divide only grew wider with time. Their children were becoming more Dutch than English, and that started to worry them. On top of that, the Pilgrims felt uneasy about the Netherlands' political situation. They wanted something more stable, a place where they could not only preserve their beliefs, but also build a lasting community. And by 1617, the congregation in Leiden had achieved some stability, but cracks were beginning to show. Bradford observed that many of their members were aging prematurely, likely worn down by the constant challenges of maintaining their livelihoods in a foreign land. Some, drained of resources and hope, had already returned to England. The leadership feared this trickle could become a flood, leaving their community unsustainable. Employment struggles made Leiden an unattractive option for newcomers, and younger members started drifting away, seeking work or adventure elsewhere. Adding to this, the group began to see a glimmer of opportunity, one that combined their faith with the chance to spread their beliefs to a distant land. Bradford laid out the reasons driving their decision to leave. The discouragement they faced in the Netherlands was hard to ignore, and they believed a fresh start in a better location might attract more like-minded individuals. There was growing concern that their children were being influenced by worldly distractions and risky behaviors. And above all, they felt a strong pull to share their faith more widely, envisioning it as a mission to spread the gospel to far-off lands. Edward Winslow echoed these sentiments, but added another layer: identity. He stressed the importance of preserving their English culture, language, and way of life. In Leiden, they were outsiders, and they feared their church had little to offer the broader community. While the prospect of starting anew in America was exciting, it came with serious risks. They'd heard chilling accounts of failed colonies, tales of violent encounters with native peoples, and fears of starvation, disease, or a treacherous sea voyage. The decision wasn't made lightly, especially with tensions rising in Europe. The truce in the 80 Years' War was crumbling, and Spain's intentions were uncertain. Staying in the Netherlands no longer felt safe. When it came to where they should go, the options were as daunting as the decision itself. Guyana, on the northeast coast of South America, was one idea, but the region was fraught with challenges. Virginia, home to an established English colony, seemed more appealing, offering potential safety and trade connections. Still, they didn't want to settle too close, wary of recreating the very conflicts they had fled from in England. Their sights ultimately landed on a location near the Hudson River, a region under English claim but still untouched by settlement. This seemed like a perfect balance. Far enough from trouble, but close enough to established colonies for some security. To make this happen, Robert Cushman and John Carver were sent to England to negotiate a land patent. Their efforts were delayed by internal conflicts within the London Company, but they finally secured a patent in 1619 under the name of John Winthrop. However, there was a catch. Their religion would not receive official recognition. Progress stalled again as the company's struggles continued. Around this time, the Dutch approached the Pilgrims with an alternative proposal to settle near the Hudson River under Dutch auspices. But after encouragement from English merchant Thomas Weston, they chose to stick with England's plan, which aligned with a broader strategy to secure the Hudson region for the English before the Dutch could establish a foothold. Weston brought news of a new grant in a territory called New England, though this wasn't finalized until later. He assured the Pilgrims that the area promised profitable fishing opportunities and lay outside the reach of Virginia's political control. However, Weston wasn't entirely transparent. Without informing the group, new investors had been brought into the venture, altering the terms of their agreement. Under the revised plan, half of the settled land and property would revert to the investors after 7 years. Additionally, a clause allowing settlers 2 days per week for personal work was quietly removed. These changes left the Pilgrims in a precarious position, but the dream of starting fresh in America kept them moving forward. Complicating matters, William Brewster became embroiled in religious unrest in Scotland. He published pamphlets opposing King James's controversial 5 Articles of Perth, which were seen as an attack on Presbyterian traditions. These pamphlets were smuggled into Scotland, attracting the attention of English authorities. Brewster became a target, and while his exact whereabouts remained unclear for a time, the Dutch authorities seized his printing equipment and arrested Thomas Brewer, one of his associates. Brewer was sent to England, where he refused to cooperate with officials, ultimately receiving a harsh prison sentence in 1626. Not everyone in the congregation could join the first voyage. Financial constraints, unfinished business, and the need for younger, stronger members to lead the initial effort meant many had to stay behind. Pastor John Robinson remained in Leiden with most of the group, while Brewster took on leadership of the American congregation. They agreed that membership would be shared between the two congregations, allowing for a seamless transition for those who might later join the new colony. With plans in place, they secured 2 ships, the Speedwell and the Mayflower. The Speedwell would transport passengers from the Netherlands to England and serve as a fishing vessel in America. The larger Mayflower was leased to handle the main voyage and exploration. This was the beginning of their long and uncertain journey to a new life.